I have more fun on stage than any place else, except maybe putting for a 67 or 68.
More than 20 Hamilton residents woke this morning to find their car windows smashed and vehicles ransacked. Thanks to help from the community, police have arrested a 19-year-old from Hamilton South and a 13-year-old from Cardiff South.
They've just been walking down the street smashing driver's side windows, whether they be the driver's window or the quarter window, and breaking into the cars and stealing whatever little tidbits they could get out of the cars.
It's not until this happens to you that you realise not only what an inconvenience it is, but how much you're going to be out of pocket by the time it's fixed. A second-hand window from a wrecker will be the cheapest. Russ Baldwin says his wrecking business has several repeat customers due to break-ins.
Quite annoyed about it, especially after the third or fourth time that this has happened. Even one gentleman's decided he wouldn't lock his car and they still broke the window to get into an unlocked car.
The quarter pane costs $35. Then you need someone like Craig Edelman to fit it at a cost of $55.
That's cheap. If they happen to take out a back window with a beer bottle, just drunk doing their usual Friday night come home, that can cost up to $1,200.
Total repair cost $90 and a couple of hours off work. The charged 19-year-old will face court on July 19.
For Newcastle's 60,000 ratepayers, Council's decision shouldn't come as too much of a bitter pill. Councillors have accepted the state government's limit of a 3.5% rise in rate income. That will lift the average rate bill by $22.79, with the garbage and recycling charge up by $17.63. In a win for the public, the bill's to be calculated using the existing base rate formula.
I'm very comfortable with doing that because we've had the least amount of complaint, requests, interests of any time, any budget period.
Council will spend its money ensuring Newcastle lives up to its clean green reputation and also start work on the $1.6 million overhaul of Newcastle Ocean Baths, a project that will kickstart public discussion on future maintenance of our city's ageing infrastructure.
Now we can only do that with the agreement of the community, with the agreement of the Minister and a plan that is acceptable and real.
Another big ticket item is the $1.5 million that's been allocated to continue the work on the Shortland Esplanade cliff stabilisation, with the cost of the safety improvement now expected to top $2.9 million.
At Mount Parry, west of Willow Tree, farmers gather at the abandoned local school. It's an appropriate choice, a symbol of how life has changed in this remote community. Mike Moses went to school here back when it was a bustling place. It's now closed, but still a focal point for locals.
You can see by what's happened here, all the people have turned up.
Yeah, it's still a meeting.
It's the meeting place, yeah.
Mike spent his life farming in the district.
It's a way of life, it's been good to me. I've loved it.
For him, this is just another inevitable drought. But these days, there's more help to make it through. This gathering, for instance, was organised by the New South Wales Department of Primary Industries.
It's to get people together and talk about how we're going to cope. It's a matter of getting people into programs where they can set up things to preserve their income for the future.
And there's plenty to discuss after the recent downpours. The rain has undoubtedly been welcome, but it brings with it a host of new dilemmas for farmers. Do they scramble to plant a last-minute crop, buy or sell more stock? There are no easy decisions.
Because the big thing that people need to understand is it's not the impact of the drought now, it's what happens in 2 years' time, what happens to your income from a decision you make in the next 3 months.
And they're shaping up to be a tough few months.
So until we get some clover growth or some annual ryegrass or things like that coming through, things are still going to be tough in terms of animal production.
The advice is important, but just as valuable to farmers is the chance to see a friendly face, share a cuppa and a chat.
We get a lot of support from each other during situations like this, and this is going on for a long time, and it's extremely stressful and difficult to get through.
The department is organising other gatherings throughout the state to help bush men and women ride out the tough times. Tomorrow night, Town and Country, how changing farming fortunes affect our rural communities.
After being held at various locations, the New South Wales Regional Fine Food Markets found a home 3 months ago at the Newcastle Showground. Taking out the middleman, the farmers' market gives producers the opportunity to supply direct to the public, and the idea has certainly been a hit, now boasting 150 stalls.
The public support has been phenomenal. We're getting over 5,500 people to each market.
The organisers are hoping holding the markets at the showground will reinvigorate dwindling interest in agriculture displays come Newcastle Regional showtime.
We're trying to develop a relationship directly with the farmers, with local producers, to be involved in the show, as well as providing this platform for them to sell their produce.
The possibility of making the markets a fortnightly rather than monthly affair is being considered, but that's unlikely to happen until at least next year. Jessica Phyllis, NBN News.
The whale watching industry has become the bread and butter for dozens of tourism operators along the coast, generating some $276 million every year in Australia. The decision to prevent culling of the mighty mammals for commercial purposes has been embraced.
It's been a big win for Australian conservation, but mostly as well for the whale watch industry.
But with celebrations comes some trepidation that whales will be killed for scientific purposes and that Japan could again push for commercial whaling as early as next year. Either decision could jeopardise businesses like this one in Port Stephens.
You start shooting at them and they won't behave the same way. In fact, they may very well go away.
It's just important for generations to come to be able to see these creatures out there because they're just amazing to see it in their environment.
They need to continue the good fight. It's not going to go away. It's going to be something that comes back every year.
Meanwhile, dive operators in New South Wales have slammed plans to slap a $20 tax on divers who want to access 10 habitat areas of the grey nurse shark. In some cases, that could mean paying as much as $200 every time divers hit the water.
When you're talking about a 40% increase across, what we have to charge the customer, it's going to hurt.
Money raised from the fee will go into projects aimed at protecting the shark species. Colleen West, NBN News.
With St Francis Xavier trailing by 10 at half-time, Jared Mullen would have loved to help out his classmates, but when you're picked to play first grade in the NRL, school footy takes a back seat. Another young Knights player, Matthew Cooper, wore plenty of work on his shoulders. A try to Corey Patterson soon followed, bringing St Francis Xavier within 4 points. Always a force in Open Rugby League, Tamworth's Farrer High went wide and skipped to an 8-point lead. The chances were there, but St Francis Xavier couldn't narrow the gap. Farrer now through to the final 16. It was also a big day in schoolboy soccer, with Hunter Sports High and St Paul's Boorrigal playing the Lake Macquarie final of the Bill Turner Cup. The left boot of Stephen Dawson levelling the score at 1-1. Hunter Sports played a physical brand of soccer. That didn't impress the St Paul's fans, and they enjoyed this even less. Dawson's second goal gave Hunter Sports a 3-1 victory and booked his school a place in the Hunter final. Todd Nardi, NBN News. He's only been in the country for around 10 hours, but already Stefan Maltz has brought a touch of European flair and style to Newcastle. Escorted from Germany by Ned Zelic, the pair played 2 seasons together at Munich and will now reunite for the inaugural A-League.
Exciting to get an offer from Australia, and I'm grateful to Ned that he thought of my person and said, Stefan, do you want to join us?
He's been a player that I've always rated very highly, and I think he'll do definitely a good job for us on the left-hand side.
His pedigree and of course his shirt suggest there's few who could outplay Stefan Maltz. As a former Arsenal player and a versatile left footer, he may just give the Jets an edge.
They want to be quite successful, and that's why I'm here, and this is what I want to be.
The rest of the Jets squad was on the training paddock today. They'll be joined by Zelic and Maltz tomorrow. Todd Nardi, NBN News.
For surfers and lovers of the sea, Wirraway at the corner of Watt and Church Streets has long been the place to live. But its location close to the beach has taken its toll on the structure. Couple that with the impending revitalisation of the Royal after it closes, and you begin to see the challenge facing owners the Stronach Group over what to do with Wirraway.
We could strata it and sell it, but which we have a DA in for at the moment. However, it's not the best solution for us or the city.
So Keith Stronach has had a concept plan prepared on a possible replacement for the 7-storey, 28-apartment complex.
One option is to demolish Wirraway and put another new building, new state-of-the-art building in its place. And that's what we're looking at as an option at the moment.
The building would be 10 storeys, and even though it's higher than the current structure, it would still be below the tallest building at the Royal.
Well, we are discussing that site with our neighbours, Landcom and Hunter Health, and that is certainly an option.
Lake Macquarie Council's customer service centre, like Newcastle, Cessnock and Port Stephens, is currently handling a surge in residential housing DAs. Last month, staff here handled 279 applications. This month there's already 377, and there's still one more trading day before the new Building Sustainability Index, or BASICS, requirements take effect.
We're identifying that builders have said, look, they want to beat the BASICS requirements, which comes in the 1st of July.
New homes approved from Friday need to be certified that they reduce energy use by 25% and cut water consumption by 40%. Software problems with the state government's website to check compliance have dramatically reduced the industry's ability to trial the system, which has already delayed BASIC's full July 1 introduction.
They've taken the first step by deferring the date for multi-units till the 1st of October, but as important, if not more importantly, is the deferment of housing.
The HIA is also concerned the changes will affect housing affordability, with the new requirements to cost up to $20,000, and builders have distanced themselves from the additional costs, telling the public to complain to their state MP. Gary Blair, NBN News.
Site works around the Hunter Street Mall may have taken a little longer than expected, but it's all been worth the wait. Spectacular steel structures and sail-like canopies which double as street sculpture are now almost complete.
Most of the canopies are now in place, which is a very exciting time for us. We've been waiting to actually see the structures, and they look fantastic, and they're really the talk of the town at the moment.
They'll provide protection for up to 160 stall holders every Saturday and Sunday. Organisers say the markets will be open to the public within 6 weeks, hopefully breathing new life into the city.
It extends the mall through these lanes which were unused, and it will add a lot of vibrance and excitement to the mall precinct.
Meanwhile, another stumbling block for Merryweather's Surf House. Councillors last night deferring a notice of motion until July 26, which called for tenders to demolish the building. Council resolved to wait for yet another report to be completed. In another development, the Department of Lands has handed control of the site to Council, enabling them to rezone the land. This opens the opportunity for a longer-term commercial lease than the 21 years previously on offer. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
This building has been the talking point since the 1989 earthquake, which highlighted just how unstable its foundations really were. What followed was the installation of these unsightly props to secure the structure, which had cracked and moved more than 25 millimetres. The engineer of the building lost a long battle in court, and despite the collapse of insurance giant HIH, the church received a very welcome $300,000 cheque last November to stabilise the structure and its foundation.
We thought we didn't have a hope, and we were wondering how we're going to come up with funds to just secure the building.
Today, more than one answer to prayers, with the skies holding off while the rusty props were brought down for good. While the new steel piers to restore the wall's integrity may not be all that appealing, the building will be rendered and given a coat of paint, giving heart to the church's 60-strong congregation.
We've been known for so long as the church with the props on it, but from today we're going to be known as a church that used to have the props on it.
Colleen West, NBN News. The Australian climate and a chance to polish his written and spoken English were the drawcards for international business student Daniel Nielsen, who has spent the past 3 years at the University of Newcastle.
It's been very nice to just see Australia, different country, different culture, and just having fun.
Today, Daniel and his longtime girlfriend Desiree joined students from 21 countries to celebrate the end of their studies. It'll be the only opportunity many of them will have to throw on these gowns, with flights back home already booked, meaning they'll miss official graduation ceremonies set down for September. Patricia Sabo from Sweden says while she's learned plenty about design and visual communications during the past 18 months, her greatest education has come from people.
It's experiencing all the different cultures and foods. Food is good.
Colleen West, NBN News.
East Timor is a recovering war zone. Independence came only in 2002, and there's still a great deal of damage to be repaired in Southeast Asia's newest nation. Yet this is where 7 students from St Francis Xavier College in Hamilton, Newcastle, have chosen to spend their schoolies' vacation. It's a far cry from the typical school leavers' destinations.
I actually feel like they're missing out if they don't come here, because it sounds like an amazing experience.
Inspired by their teacher's trip to the country last year, the students decided to pass up the idea of a booze-filled bash to work full-time for 4 weeks in the third world nation.
We're learning how to people to speak English, and we're going to teach them basics on the computers.
We're going to be spending time renovating a classroom, so a bit of renovation rescue, cleaning, painting, all that sort of stuff.
So what inspires someone so young to do something so selfless?
For me, it's a personal reason. I travelled overseas last year to Cambodia, and I know how I can help people, even with the minimal experience I've had doing these things.
As well as paying their own way, the students are hoping to raise $20,000 to donate to the communities they'll be volunteering in.
There's always going to be parties, there's always going to be times to enjoy it with friends, and I've got the rest of my life for that. I'll never be able to be just fresh out of school and teaching overseas in a third world country again.
Jessica Phyllis, NBN News.
There's no real risk labelling Alistair Campbell as Australian rugby's next big thing. He is, after all, over 2 metres tall and 115 kilograms. The 25-year-old lock was brought into the 27-man squad this week and today was named on the bench in Australia's 22 to play France, making him Singleton's latest Wallaby.
Yeah, I grew up in Singleton. It was I played for the local Singleton Bulls, which was a great experience. We had a fantastic side from under 9s and 12s. It was a good sort of grounding to start my football career, I suppose.
Campbell does of course follow in the footsteps of Singleton's favourite son, Steve Merrick, who played 2 tests in the mid-90s. Fellow number 9 and Singleton junior Josh Valentine spent time at the Wallabies Coffs Harbour camp last season. Campbell, though, having played just a handful of Super 12 matches, could well gain his first international cap in Brisbane on Saturday.
It's something that I've always dreamt about, so I think if the opportunity arises, I'll definitely have a crack, and it'll be just so exciting to get on.
But he's the sort of guy that we think he could develop into a good test player over the next few years.
Meantime, Chris Latham has overcome a hamstring injury to reclaim his fullback spot ahead of Matt Rogers.
It's unlucky for Matt Rogers, who's done very well in the last 3 games, but we just feel that Chris deserves his spot.
Todd Nardi, NBN News. An injury and suspension-plagued season couldn't have come at a worse time for Josh Perry. The Knights have made the front rower an offer, but his management today said they believed it was below his value. With a number of established NRL front rowers on the move at the end of 2005, Perry could very well find a home outside Newcastle. The Knights today said they're working very hard to retain Perry, while they're also in talks with another experienced front rower, former Raider Luke DeVico. Joint football manager Steve Crowe says the club is very confident of re-signing Milton Thaiday. The informed fullbacks manager believes the two parties will strike a 2-year deal within 24 hours. And a man who's caused the Kangaroos a few headaches in the Test arena could be joining the Red and Blue. The Knights are hoping to gain the services of Great Britain winger Brian Carney. The Wigan Flyer has also been linked with South Sydney. Meantime, there's been some good financial news for the current Knights players. The General Committee of the Newcastle Rugby League has voted unanimously to act as guarantor if the Knights have a budget shortfall and need to borrow money to pay players.
It may not be that case if they can get some sponsorship over the line, which they're hoping to do in the next week and maybe even sooner, that we're there as a backup if they need it as guarantor.
Todd Nardi, NBN News.
And the biggest man in the league at 7'1" and 120 kilos. He's huge. He's a mountain of a man, and he's a young man but got great hands and got great potential.
The girls came down immediately and helped drag me up the beach by the armpits. The teacher, Don Shaw, applied immediate first aid.
It was a contest for the full 80 minutes, but for two sides devoid of star players due to a host of reasons, the end result reflected the contrast in player depth.
Effort at times was fair, but just a couple of fundamental things are hurting us at the moment. I mean, the Roosters' kicking game and pressure was a bit better than ours, and that was probably the difference in the end.
We were still in the game, even with the players that we had. I just think we were our own worst enemy. Too many errors coming out in yardage in the second half and too many penalties in the first half.
It was nothing like what referees had to deal with in Darwin, with things getting way out of control at a local club game. After a brawl erupted on-field between players, seconds later, the trainers got stuck into each other. Before fans then drew themselves into a violent scene that even includes some women. The referee eventually calling it a day.
Scooby-Doo is more than just a pet. The 6-month-old Maltese Terrier is a special needs companion. 15-year-old Holly has a learning disability, but she's well aware of what these scars mean. On Thursday, Scooby-Doo was attacked on the family's front lawn. Holly's father, Stuart, took photos of the attacking dogs not long after.
The brown one just sort of got stuck into him. Sort of put the jaws right round his whole middle and taken a good chunk out of him.
Just a few hundred metres from that attack, the O'Neill family had 6 pet rabbits killed late yesterday by dogs matching the same description.
I don't understand how they've escaped. They've done another attack, 3 days ago and taken back to the owner and escaped again to do this one.
In what is little comfort for these families, it's been revealed the dogs are back in the care of their owner tonight. Police say they will be taking action.
If you need to tie them up in your backyard while you're out, tie them up.
Please just take them off the streets, do something with them.
The Alaskan Malamute is not one of 5 breeds on the New South Wales government's dangerous dog list. Adam McIlrick, NBN News.
Day one of the smoking restrictions, and already the Wallsend RSL club is experiencing a downturn in numbers.
Some of them have indicated to us that they won't be coming back into the club and that they'll be staying at home.
This is the area designated for smoking until July 2007 at least, when all patrons wishing to light up will be required to use an outdoor area that's under construction.
It's an inconvenience that I've got to come here to buy a beer and go out there to have a smoke.
The decision to restrict smoking to one area has received sharp criticism from some hunter patrons and pub and club owners who say more time is needed to implement the changes. And while they fear a downturn in business, others have embraced the move.
I don't mind moving to a certain part to smoke.
People have a notion of a beer and a cigarette go hand in hand, and we've really got to put a strategy in place, build an awareness program so those people can change their routines.
The Belmont 16-foot sailing club says it's one of the lucky venues with outdoor smoking areas already in place, making the transition ahead of the 2007 deadline a whole lot easier. Colleen West, NBN News.
Getting your car repaired at your local panel beater could become a thing of the past. The state's two largest insurers, NRMA and CGU, want to introduce a new system where they decide who fixes your car.
Under that system, the customer has no choice to repair anymore unless they're prepared to pay an extra $69 a year on top of their premium.
Most of the region's smash repairers have refused to sign the new agreement, with some risking between 50 and 75% of their work, which comes from the two top insurers.
Instead of having your car repaired now in 1 or 2 week margin, you might have to wait 2 or 3 months to get your car repaired, because all of us have had to close our doors because of systems like these.
Under the new scheme, the damaged car would be taken to a central assessment centre, then preferred repairers would bid for the work from photos on the internet, with the insurer taking the lowest possible quote.
In the Newcastle area where there's 120 repairers, they've only got 8 shops to sign their new contract at the present, and that's nowhere near enough to get their jobs done.
Not so, according to the insurer.
I'm more than comfortable with the number of repairers that have signed with us thus far, and it enables us to implement this new process now.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Of the men who've worn the red and blue, there's few who haven't spent tough, fruitful hours at Wal Bentley's Charlestown gym. Past and present knights said farewell to the club's boxing coach, including the man perhaps most influenced by Bentley, the chief, Paul Harrigan. Wal had a big hand in local boxing as well, having trained a number of state and national champions. The former English Navy welterweight champ became the Knights boxing coach shortly after the club's inception. As cancer took hold, the life member was again honoured by the club late last year, presented with a set of boxing gloves, a thank you for the years he spent on player fitness and helping injury rehabilitation. Strict on fitness, his athletes will also long remember Bentley's sharp advice for his amateur boxing pupils.
Stick to football, maybe.
Wal Bentley died aged 75 and is survived by his wife Barbara. Todd Nardi, NBN News.
An ankle injury might have limited George Carmont's ability to train in recent weeks, but it hasn't hindered his performance on the playing field. Renewed confidence after a slow start to the year has resulted in some clever plays in both attack and in defence.
Tended to shy away when things weren't going well, but I've just got to get involved as much as I can, and hopefully I'll get something.
It's a game plan that will serve him well in coming weeks as he shops around for a new club. While under contract for another year with Newcastle, the club has allowed him to look elsewhere for a new deal.
They're sort of trying to look out for my future as well, and I'm just sort of going to have to do what's best for myself and my football career.
Winger Craig Hall will have surgery on a knee injury later this week that's plagued him for much of the season. He's also off contract, but won't play again in 2005. Jim Callanan, NBN News. The playing roster is almost complete, but a lot hinges on the availability of the talented German Stefan Mols.
The end of last week I thought it was looking okay. Over the weekend maybe not so good. We'll just wait and see what he's got to say. We have to respect the way he feels.
The football manager has already sounded out a Portuguese player to replace him. With long-term injuries to Andrew Durante and Joe Wheelhouse, trialists are hoping to cash in on short-term deals, and Tarek Elrich, brother of Socceroo Ahmed, is doing so well he may yet earn a long-term contract.
I'm really impressed with young Elrich. I think he's got tremendous ability, great potential.
English-based Socceroo Ryan Townsend hopes to get a chance as well, with plans afoot to have him join the squad for trials in Coffs Harbour next week.
People I've spoken to in England have said he's a decent defender and someone that we should look at.
Stuart Mashalik knows plenty about him, given they just competed at the World Youth Cup together in the Netherlands.
He does well. I rate him, and he did all right when we were away. Played against Japan and scored the goal, so yeah, I'm looking forward to having him coming in.
Michalek won't play in the Jets' trial match against Broadmeadow tomorrow night, neither will Mark Bridge, as the latter continues a quicker-than-expected return from a broken bone in his foot. Star signings Ned Zelic and Ante Milicic will also sit out the match. It's been an indifferent season for the North Stars, but things seem to be coming together at the right time of year. With Australian rep Matt Ezzy in front of goal, things were tough for the visitors, but there were some things that even get past the best, with the puck deflecting off both the rear netting and his back before sliding in. Canada's Francis Walker and Don Nichols combined well to leave no doubt for the North Stars next. While Australian junior Casey Minson's effort wasn't too bad either. The Rhinos' Czech Republic import, Dusan Haloon, caused headaches, slapping home all 3 goals for the Central Coast. But the home side showed its class to win by 6 and push themselves into 3rd spot. With games in hand, they're looking good to sew up another playoff spot. In Premier League hockey, wins for South, Maitland, Gosford and the Entrants scored 6 against West. It was a good weekend for the 2 Central Coast sides. The Entrants' 4-goal victory reflecting their ability in this interregional competition. And in golf, Belmont Golf Club's Nick Flanagan finished 1 under par at the nationwide tour event that finished in America to be tied for 34th overall. Nathan Green was 1 shot further back.
From today, the Jungle Juice Cup will always be held on the first Tuesday of July. For the people of Cessnock, it's as good as the first Tuesday of November. 25 years after it first started, the Cup still attracts around 7,000 people. Held in the heart of the Hunter Valley, wine was popular, but the day's namesake, Dr. Jerd's Jungle Juice, remains the on-course favourite. Hopefully the doctor has an equally good remedy for tomorrow morning. If the juice was in good taste, the fashions mostly weren't.
Jungle Juice Day is just the best because you can just let go and be yourself.
Yeah, the year's on, you don't miss us. Absolutely.
Those with stamina focused for the Jungle Juice Cup, the Paul Perry trained Charter, the favourite.
Paul's won Group 1 races everywhere, including 2 in England, and yet to win the Jungle Juice, but it'll happen one day, if not today.
In the home straight, it was clear this year's Jungle Juice wasn't going to the Perry stable. Shall Run, trained by Wyong's Rob Rowe, rewarded punters richly, as did the trifecta, worth nearly $3,000. Todd Nardi, NBN News.
It was at the beginning of 2003 that all major players in the Hunter Valley coal chain decided to pool their knowledge to increase coal exports, and today that agreement was made official.
People everywhere could well learn from how well done it's been here.
The rail network connects to all the mines and connects to the one port, so even though there's different players, if you don't plan it and coordinate it in a fashion, then you'll sub-optimise the operation and end up costing capacity for everybody.
The Hunter Valley Coal Chain Logistics Team, which is the first of its kind in Australia, has seen coal exports increase from 69 to 81 million tonnes in just 18 months, and that's without the injection of additional capital. But bigger targets have been set for the future. Plans are underway for up to $1 billion worth of coal chain expansion works that could see export capacity increase to around 140 million tonnes per annum over the next 5 years. And if you've noticed a growing number of coal ships off the Newcastle coast, at midday there were 37. Port Waratah Coal Services says it's normal for this time of the year and is a result of end of financial year selling by coal companies. Colleen West, NBN News.
Shoulder to shoulder down the main street of Toronto, they proudly stepped it out across the traditional Awabakal land to the lake shore. NAIDOC was the name given to the National Aborigines and Islanders Day Observance Committee, the acronym now used to describe a week of events every July.
the wider community, the non-Aboriginal people. They participated and marched down the street with us proudly, and so today it's all about breaking barriers, and I think we've just taken a few steps towards that.
Local politicians joined in the festivities, which included a performance by the Warramai dancers. Relationships between the original inhabitants of the continent and the more recent European arrivals have come a long way in the past 2 centuries, but most agree there is still plenty of work to do. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
No player enjoys watching from the sideline, but after injury and a 6-week suspension, you can only imagine how Josh Perry feels about his return this weekend. Given he'll be playing for a side that's trying to keep him, against the one trying to buy him, it just gets more interesting.
It's a great time for Josh to put his hand up, and if he's doing that and he's in contract negotiations, well, it's going to help him as well.
Perry would prefer to speak with Knights and Queensland coach Michael Hagan before making any public comment on his future, but it's understood the Knights aren't far from the deal he's after. In fact, there's a lot to consider after this Origin decider, with hooker Danny Badiris one of 3 players named to back up against the Cowboys, a team who have their own share of players involved.
We're all confident or thinking positive the fact that all 3 of them, Andrew Johns, Steve Simpson and Danny, will all get through unscathed.
And there's no risk of winger Trent Sorkill getting carried away with his hat-trick try performance at the weekend.
You look at the forwards, they do all the work, I know a lot of people say backs are just people that hang out with footballers, so...
It was enough, though, to retain a spot this weekend. Jim Callanan, NBN News.
It seems to be go, go, go in Newcastle with construction sites on almost every corner, but businessman Hilton Grujon believes planning obstacles are now restricting progress across the region.
The post-BHP momentum of this area is being stifled by the state government in the way they are dealing with us while they prepare their master plan.
It's an issue close to Mr Grujon's heart. He's hit a snag with one of his own developments at Lochinvar, held up until the region's master plan is complete. Mr Grujon today cited examples of planning gone wrong, comparing them to developments which have moved forward with little difficulty, such as Hunter Valley Grammar School and Rafferty's Resort.
Contrast that with, if you like, John Hunter Hospital, that was planned to within an inch of its death and has ended up with a situation there which is so potentially life-threatening and dangerous to the whole community in lack of proper access in and out of that place.
Mr Grujon moved to dispel the popular myth that developers were eagerly awaiting the closure of the Newcastle rail line and added weight to developer Keith Stronach's calls for a light rail system into the city. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
At 213 centimetres, that's an even 7 feet in the old scale, Jason Everstein caught everyone's eye at Pirates training today. Well, almost. The tallest man in the NBL, he didn't join his new teammates on court, but it won't be long.
Yeah, very excited to get out there. Just bad timing, it was a bit of a foot injury at the moment, but give it a week or two and I'll be out there.
Only just 15, Olivia Torres is about to test herself on the world stage of athletics. The Coalfields raised speedster currently posting times that rank her as a genuine medal chance at the World Youth Championships in Morocco against girls 3 years her senior.
I've raced open women and that's been a lot harder than it has been raced people your own age. So hopefully I'll take my experience from that and put it over to running over there in under 18.
Wrapping up final preparations on the Gold Coast today, Toro flies out tomorrow after already winning her first battle, raising enough money just to get there.
Pretty big struggle being from a family of 8.
And footballers are used to spilling blood for their club, but last night the Macquarie Scorpions gladly donated it for the good of all. Instead of training, every senior player, official and coach from their senior sides armed up. And given stocks are dangerously low at present, they've become a crowd favourite with the Red Cross.
Jets manager Richard Money says he's not in the business of signing players from watching a DVD, but in the case of Matteo Corvo, he's viewed as a good fit in the absence of Stefan Maltz.
He's an interesting player. He's tough, uncompromising South American left-sided defender.
The club has also moved to make Tarek Elrich a Jet for much longer than first thought. Originally given a short-term contract to replace Joe Wheelhouse, the brother of Socceroo Ahmed has since been offered a 2-year deal.
We've been very impressed with what we've seen with him, and we think he's a young player with a tremendous potential, and we hope that he's going to accept what we've offered him.
And Money was among the spectators at last night's trial in what was a special game for the club's coaching boss.
It's the first time I've seen us play live, and I wanted to use the match not only for some fitness for everybody, but also to have a look at people that I haven't seen.
Although the Jets finished 6-0 winners in last night's trial with Broadmeadow, the NBN Soccer League side pulled off some magic of its own, a worthy opponent as Newcastle continues its A-League build-up. Adam McIlrick, NBN News.
It's enough to make a Queenslander see red. That's right, blue bread and trays upon trays of sweet delights, all sporting that famous New South Wales hue.
The blue custard tarts, I think they're a bit of a surprise packet. Definitely the blue
jelly cupcakes, that's quite nice, and blue lamingtons, and a couple of blue finger buns.
Dungog locals consider their town football heartland and are only too willing to wear their league loyalties on their lips.
Is this your first blue lamington?
Yeah.
How was it?
Good.
Here, all it took was a bit of blue food colouring to lick the maroons.
Had any Queenslanders in here?
Had one lady wearing a Queensland jersey come past the front of the shop window, and she proudly displayed her jersey, but we gave her marching orders.
Blues fans will be hoping the Queensland side gets the message.
Who's going to win tonight?
The Blues.
I reckon New South Wales by 12.
Move over police dogs, this robot is coming to the rescue. Well, at least it will be once it's all fine-tuned. Aptly named rescue bots, little guys just like this one have been used during disasters across the world, including earthquakes, house fires, even terrorist attacks.
This is something that has been used, this kind of technology, in things like the World Trade Center disaster. And it's great to be able to have something that is fully under your control and that you can send into very unsafe environments.
While there were a few mechanical problems today, by Sunday they'll have this one ready and raring to go as the students head off to Japan to take on the world's best at RoboCup 2005. The students are challenged to manoeuvre the robot around a simulated emergency area like this one, searching for injured people.
We'll have this remote-controlled robot to try and wander around, look at the scenario, map out things, find out where people are or may be, whether they're trapped or whether they're free, whether they're conscious, semi-conscious.
The rescue bot combines laser scanning, thermal imaging sensors, carbon dioxide sensors and a video camera. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
On a trip to the corner shop to buy a bag of lollies, the mother of 3 didn't come home.
At about 1:20 p.m. this afternoon, a collision between a pedestrian and a motor vehicle took place. The corner is Lindsay Street and Raymond Terrace Road.
Walking across the road and just about to get into her car, the 35-year-old died instantly. The driver didn't even stop, giving the woman no chance.
Pedestrians do cross that road there quite regularly because of the shop on the apex of the corner.
There's no zebra crossing on this section of road, raising questions that perhaps there should be.
There was quite clear view from the corner through to where the collision occurred, so I'm suspecting just speed may have been involved.
Witness accounts are conflicting, with police examining debris at the roadside to identify exactly the type of vehicle involved. Its driver facing some very serious charges. Tonight, a massive hunt is underway for the driver and the vehicle, which police say could have extensive front-end damage. Adam McIlrick, NBN News.
The local two-way radio channels were buzzing with news of yesterday's accident. Late yesterday, the skipper of a passing boat saw a man next to his upturned craft off Moon Island. In fading light, it was amazing he was spotted at all, but his chances of survival were dramatically improved by the fact that he was wearing a life jacket, a situation the Coast Guard says is not always the case.
Yes, unfortunately. I don't think you'll ever really educate them that way. Seem to be the old people that hear all the time. They're under the impression that nothing can go wrong, and that's when it does go wrong.
It is law to wear life jackets when crossing coastal bars, and while not everyone appeared to be complying today, the Coast Guard says when the worst does happen, the simple precaution can mean the difference between life and death. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
When it comes to engineering, civil and structural in particular, Neil Petherbridge is at the top of his game. He's the manager of Northrop, a successful Newcastle engineering firm, pulling in some of the city's, if not the country's, most lucrative projects, including the Azura on the old Holiday Inn site.
I now look after 20-odd people in Newcastle. I'm a senior shareholder within the company, and as I said, it's provided me with lots of opportunities. I've always been able to do what I wanted to do.
Mr Petherbridge and colleague Carly Collis are both Newcastle graduates and encourage anyone with an interest in maths and science to take up engineering.
Everyone wants to make their mark on the world, and this is quite a definite way of doing that. And see things go up, see things happen, make things work.
But surprisingly, the number of engineering students across all disciplines is on the decline. Researchers at the University of Newcastle are developing a nationwide strategy to promote engineering to school students.
What are the things that influence students' decisions at primary school and high school? And then how can we better target them to give them the message about a career in engineering?
Professor O'Connor says the shortage needs to be addressed urgently, with companies crying out for graduates.
There's no doubt there's a shortage of engineers in Australia. We've just employed a lady from the UK, which we did through a recruitment agency, and that's just because we haven't been able to source experienced engineers in Australia.
Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.